Hey team, good morning. Hope you're all doing well. I got another great question from one of my supporters here. Operation Darthstorm asked a two-part question. I'll answer his first question and then I'll answer his second question in another video. But he says, do two-part runs have the same, worse, or better effect than continuous runs, i.e., running 2.5 miles to the gym, doing a small gym workout in strides, and running 2.5 miles back home. Okay, and I know he didn't go into specifics on the other one, but versus doing, say, like a 5 mile run or an 8 mile run continuously. I think they both have the pros and cons. I Over the years, I've always been taught that doing one run is better than doing two runs. Okay, because again, you're spending more time building that endurance, building your stamina if you're trying to work, if you're doing like an anaerobic threshold run where you're running closer to like 88 to around 90 to 92% of your maximum heart rate. But again, there's always schedules come up, things that we have to do. Maybe you're in grad school, maybe you're handling other responsibilities, and in that case, it's better to do an AM run and a PM run. Again, the coaches, Jack Hazen and Dr. Joe Vigil, those were two mentors of mine in college and when I was in my prime, and they would always, kind of lean more toward if time is a constraint, then knock out one run, do it one continuous run, versus doing what you mentioned here, running like 2.5 miles to the gym, doing a small gym workout and some strides, and then running 2.5 miles back home. Of course, that particular type of workout will work great if you have a little bit more time and your schedule isn't as constrained as most of us. When I was in the military, you had to just make the time, and a lot of times I would get up at, if I had to be at work at 7 a.m., I would knock out. There were times where I'd knock out my long run, 18, 20 miler. I'd get up at like 4 a.m., knock that thing out, and have it done the rest of the day. And it's a good feeling. It's very, very hard if you're not really a morning person, and I'm not a morning person. When I was in the service, I had to make do, and I had to just suck it up, embrace the suck, as we say in the military, and deal with it. So again, it really comes down to your why. What are you training for? So that motivation, that drive to get you out the door each day is gonna motivate you regardless what you're dealing with. And as I mentioned, I think there is definitely benefits to doing two-part runs, like you mentioned, versus doing one run. Okay, one run is it's nice just to have the workout done and over with. And especially if your schedule you're extremely busy and you're really strained on time, doing an AM run or doing, say, if you have to, knocking out a workout after work. Sometimes you can do, and I did this too. Sometimes you can fit in a workout during your lunch break. Okay, there were times where I would run in the morning, I would run during my lunch break, and then I would run after work. Other times, just based off the schedule, I would knock out a run either in the AM or in the PM. But the longer time, doing one workout, one run, versus doing two, breaking up the workouts, is, I think, a lot of times doing one run is better. Again, you're spending more time on your feet, you're building that endurance, you're building your stamina, but also you got to also remember too, if you're trying to do higher volume, I would recommend doing two runs versus doing one continuous run. It's very, very hard to say, and I've done this too in the past, where you're doing like 80 to 100 miles a week, and this isn't for everybody. Okay, I know there are athletes out there doing like 15 to 20 miles a week is a lot. Okay, and kudos to all of you that are putting in that type of work as well. I don't think you're doing any less. You're any less of an athlete if you're a total beginner or you're an elite level athlete. I try to be in terms of making these videos, I try to be relatable in the way I make these videos. Just say, hey, I've dealt with failures, I've dealt with time constraints, I've dealt with getting my rear end handed to me on the track and out on the roads trying to race, and I've also had some successes as well. But I think really at the end of the day, between doing two-part runs like Operation Darkstorm mentioned, if you're trying to run higher mileage, it's a much easier plan of action to handle that type of volume if you're doing an AM and a PM run versus trying to do one single run. Yes, it can be done. I've done 80 to 100 mile weeks on singles, but I've also once I got up to 130 to 140 miles a week, I had to do doubles. Okay, and I don't necessarily believe. Also, just so you all are aware, I don't think doing higher mileage is the answer in most cases. I PR'd for every distance from 5K to the marathon distance on around 80 to 90 miles a week. And then I got up to my highest week ever was 142 miles a week, and all I was fatigued and tired. When you're up that high, all you're doing is running, running about 18 to 20 miles a day. So you have to be smart about how you're setting up your training. And again, if you don't have a lot of time, try and your volume is reasonable, do one single run versus not doing a double run. Again, even if you want to do a mixture of a higher volume on one day and then doing a lighter day, doing two-part runs like Operation Darkstorm mentioned, that's okay. If you do like an AM run, do a 2.5 mile run to the gym, like you mentioned, do a short gym workout and do some strides and then run back home. That could be your AM run. And then in the evening, maybe do a longer, moderate run, if you're doing a double, okay? Some athletes out there, and you may be one of them, are really interested in double threshold days, okay? Again, doing double threshold runs and doing like double threshold workouts, you have to have built that first before you even think about doing that type of workout. Spend 4 to 6 weeks running easy aerobic mileage first. Strengthen your ligaments, strengthen your joints, your muscles before you start trying to do race-specific workouts, running at lactate threshold efforts, running at your VO2 max effort, where you're sprinting, whether it's like doing repeat 150-meter hill repetitions or you're doing workouts on the track. Don't just jump into hard anaerobic workouts before you have first laid that foundation of easy aerobic mileage. But I do think there is, as I mentioned before, if you're not doing high volume, you can get away with doing one single run every day, or you can break this up. You can do a single run one day, and then you can do a double, do an AM and a PM workout maybe the next day. Okay, so don't try to do all of the work in one. Try to do single runs 6 days a week or 7 days a week. Okay, a lot of athletes, and you may be one of them, can get the same results running 2 to 3 days a week as somebody else that has to run 6 to 7 days a week. Maybe you're one of those types of athletes that, and I certainly didn't have it, just an enormous amount of genetic capability, and you can run 30 to 40 miles a week, or the equivalent in kilometers, and get the same results as somebody out there that really doesn't have, that really has to work even harder because maybe they don't have as much genetic capability, but has to run maybe 70 to 100 miles a week, or the equivalent in kilometers. Okay, so we're all different. We all have different backgrounds, but great question, Operation Darkstorm. I hope that answers your question of, do two-part runs have the same, worse, or better effect than continuous runs? I think they're similar in terms of if you do shorter two-part runs, I think it's better in terms of being able to do higher mileage and not quite be as fatigued. So I think in that case they're better than the continuous runs, where if you're doing continuous runs, you also have to remember that will fatigue you, and you really have to pay attention to, if you're going to choose to do continuous runs for every run during your week, make sure you are jogging on your easy days. Okay, I know it's hard for all of you. It was hard for me too, to back off and relax my pace and to really take it easy on my easy days, because we're so ramped up and we're so driven to run fast. But you got to remember, you can't continue to push the body hard and expect really high returns on your investment. Okay, you have to have that adaptation, sufficient time for your body to adapt to what you're throwing at it. And so you have to jog. Take it easy, relax, They're easy days for a reason, okay? So I hope that answered your question, Operation Darkstorm. I will answer your other question here, and I'll mention it here in this video, but I'll talk about it in the next video. It says, what are the different kinds of adaptations and their time scales, i.e. recovering from a hard workout takes a few days while improving heart blood volume flow, mitochondria, etc. Maybe takes a couple months. So I'll answer that in the next question. Thank you all for watching my videos. Thanks for your support. Thanks for liking and sharing my videos. And if all of you or any of you are looking to set a new PR, check out the resources on RunDreamAchieve or below my videos. And I'll talk to you guys and gals on the next video.